Sir Pelham Grenville Wodehouse, KBE, was an English author and one of the most widely read humorists of the 20th century. Born in Guildford, the son of a British magistrate based in Hong Kong, Wodehouse spent happy teenage years at Dulwich College, to which he remained devoted all his life. After leaving school he was employed by a bank but disliked the work and turned to writing in his spare time. His early novels were mostly school stories, but he later switched to comic fiction, creating several regular characters who became familiar to the public over the years. They include the feather-brained Bertie Wooster and his sagacious valet, Jeeves, the immaculate and loquacious P. Smith, Lord Emsworth, and a Blandings Castle set, the oldest member, with stories about golf, and Mr. Mulliner, with tall tales on subjects ranging from bibulous bishops to megalomaniac movie moguls. Although most of Wodehouse's fiction is set in England, he spent much of his life in the US and used New York and Hollywood as settings for some of his novels and short stories. During and after the First World War, together with Guy Bolton and Jerome Kern, he wrote a series of Broadway musical comedies that were an important part of the development of the American musical. He began the 1930s writing for MGM in Hollywood. In a 1931 interview, his naive revelations of incompetence and extravagance at Hollywood studios caused a furore. In the same decade, his literary career reached a new peak. In 1934, Wodehouse moved to France for tax reasons. In 1940, he was taken prisoner at Le Touquet by the invading Germans and interned for nearly a year. After his release, he made 6 broadcasts from German radio in Berlin to the US, which had not yet entered the war. The talks were comic and apolitical, but his broadcasting over enemy radio prompted anger and strident controversy in Britain, and a threat of prosecution. Wodehouse never returned to England. From 1947 until his death he lived in the US, taking dual British-American citizenship in 1955. He was a prolific writer throughout his life, publishing more than 90 books, 40 plays, 200 short stories and other writings between 1902 and 1974. He died in 1975, at the age of 93, in Southampton, New York. Wodehouse worked extensively on his books, sometimes having 2 or more in preparation simultaneously. He would take up to 2 years to build a plot and write a scenario of about 30,000 words. After the scenario was complete, he would write the story. Early in his career, he would produce a novel in about 3 months, but he slowed in old age to around 6 months. He used a mixture of Edwardian slang, quotations from and allusions to numerous poets, and several literary techniques to produce a prose style that has been compared with comic poetry and musical comedy. Some critics of Wodehouse have considered his work flippant, but among his fans are former British Prime Ministers and many of his fellow writers.